and I'm from Thycotic. There is also my colleague Wolfgang Wiemer from Thycotic, and he will be able also to answer some questions if needed. But for the most of the time, I will be the one leading the presentation. A few words about myself. I've been with security space for over 2 decades. I started in the times where security wasn't really wasn't a job at all, I would say. It's been times it's been mostly hobby for people like myself, and it's well-rounded profession these days. So I can say that I've been around a bit. I'm not sharing my webcam today. I went ZZ Top over the last months during the lockout period. So I'm gonna spare you that view, guys, and yeah, jump directly to the content. The plan for today is basically just to introduce you to what we do, how we do it, and what are possible differences in our approach, and then switch quickly to the demo to show you how the GUI looks alike and what are the possibilities, how we do configure it, and what are the options that you might like or you might not in the end. So how about starting with something fresh? So I think it was yesterday when the Verizon data breach investigation report was actually published, and I went through it. I would say it's a must-have read for every security professional out there. So I encourage you to download it yourself and go over it and study it. There is a lot of useful information over there, or interesting information regarding privilege access, passwords in general, and there is a increase in breaches that use credentials. I think the last time it was 29% of breaches that were going after credential. This year it's 37, and still it's something that is low-hanging fruit for criminals, and it's not gonna change possibly over, anywhere soon, I would say. There is like a very strong quote that I really like from the report, that it is, I will quote it is apparent the use of credentials has been on a meteoric rise. I haven't heard that term before, meteoric rise. I like it a lot. It tells the story. We all know it, that credentials are super important, and that we have to take care of them, and that's probably a good reason why Gartner is ranking privilege access monitoring PAM as a CISO #1 priority, and it does it a second year in a row. So that probably tells a lot about the priority of PAM that people really um, follow and pay attention to. So who is Thycotic in this space? I wanted to use again something fresh that I haven't used before. So I used the report from German analytic company Coil, and they came up with this report. I think it's 2 weeks fresh or so, and they went over a number of players in this space, and Thycotic was ranked, I would say, yeah, very high over the report. And specifically, there is a nice view or nice quadrant on the innovation part. I didn't put it on this slide, just didn't want to mess up too much with that. But in this specific one, we go the highest level. So, and it's, I think, always good to see that the company is being innovative, and specifically that they name us innovators, and gave us a good ranking around the capabilities of user analytics, how we do it, and for how long we have been doing, because we're actually the first one in this space, and the others followed us in what we do in privilege behavior analytics space, and PAM overall in the end. So I encourage you to reach out to me, or to on the website. On the website, it's also published. There is a couple of good good quotes from there, good information on the overall market. And one of the things they do this fancy graph that gives you a quick overview on each player, and then you can see how much coverage that each player do in the space. And you can see that the Thycotic does cover a lot. There are some nice acronyms over here that I'm always impressed how those guys come up with. So things like AAPM, it actually stands for Application to Application Privilege Management, and some other guys. I have sometimes this impression that those guys are like incentivized based on the terms that they come up with. Might be wrong about that, but that's the thing with the analytic guys. Okay, so let's do actually some training on buzzwords. No, I'm just kidding about that, but it's a fact. I mean, everybody use those fancy terms. It really, in the end, doesn't matter so much to know what they mean. It's really about the attack surface that we are facing and reducing that attack surface. And not so long time ago, when this market started to mature, it was really only about admin passwords, Windows passwords, Unix flavored systems passwords, and then it started to grow into adjacent areas, things like applications, things like services, and then horizontally or into cloud and DevOps environments, and then we have to align it somehow with the fact that we allow external vendors or external contractors into our networks, and so on and so on. So it became a really complicated space, and the difference between different players in the space are really huge. A lot of companies started from the angle of being just a vault and then grew with additional functionalities. Some of them started being a session recorder and eventually added more functionalities for, let's say, service accounts. And overall, the stance of the PAM market is very dynamic. In the end, we try to cover each and every aspect of the privileged access management space, and hopefully we'll get better understanding how we do it by the end of the presentation, by the end of the demo. So how do I reach nirvana point in my company life when it comes to privileged access management? We all start, and some companies still are there, at least some parts of the network, in a analog area. And it's I mean, it's not more than a week when I talk to a company that still has safes, like physical safes for storing the most critical password, and the administrator who uses the password has to print a new one and lock it in safe. Not super secure in the end, right? Because the guy is supposed to forget the password and do not take a picture of it. So, but it's still there, and there is obviously a lot of spreadsheet tracking mechanisms. So a spreadsheet that might be encrypted, that is shared across different people in the organization. We all been there, and then it started to mature. So by maturing, we mean that there is some vault in organization. It might be somehow not a single vault, but it might be like a personal vault that admins use, something that the company has paid for, or an enterprise vault. And then we go from being like completely reactive to being more responsive, where we actually check on the secrets or passwords we store in the vault, and try to find out if this password is still valid, what users have access to it, and eventually become more proactive on that. So try to secure passwords, so do password rotation, monitor the sessions of privileged users, so record them, do analytics on them, on that. So try to find out if there is anything anomalous about how a particular using secret, and then adapt to it. So if there is anything suspicious, to possibly block the session, block the user, and even expire all the passwords the user could have access to. So it's a path for sure, and I don't believe that anybody can say that they entirely reach that nirvana point in their company, that they privileged security is at the highest level. It doesn't work like that. Some companies might in some areas be there, but most of the companies have secrets here, have secrets there, different dispersed, geographically dispersed systems, and definitely it's a path, and it requires a lot of steps to get there. So how does it look from Thycotic perspective? What are the ingredients of what we do, and how we address those steps needed to reach that nirvana? So our flagship product, a ship that we build other products on, basically, is Secret Server. It's responsible for vaulting. This is the basic functionality, and then to increase security of passwords over additional mechanisms. I'll get what it does more in a following slide. We have PBA, Privileged Behavior Analytics, that uses a lot of data from Secret Server, which is actually the one responsible for user behavior analytics monitoring and blocking access for those who do not play, let's say, nice with the secrets. We also have a couple of others that use data from Secret Server. Overall, the idea is that to cover all possible aspects of privileged access management, and do not be like just a single feature player like you might come by. So there's like a couple of companies that are, for example, good at session recording, but outside of session recording they do nothing. And for example, they integrate with us for the vault and password rotation functionality. So trying to be a little bit precise on what each product does. So Secret Server is responsible for storing secrets, storing passwords. So I have to feed the data into it somehow, and that can be done multiple ways. So I can import data based on, let's say, XML file or some custom format. For example, we can directly import KeePass database into Secret Server. Once we have the data in the vault, we can try to discover more. So to find out within the organization if there are any accounts that we do not have already in the vault, and we can do it over Active Directory. We can do it over Unix flavored systems. We can do it over ESXi. We can do it over AWS, and we can extend that functionality possibly to any IT system with PowerShell or Bash scripting that is fairly easy to configure. So having those secrets in place, we'll do role-based access control on those guys, and we can be very granular who has access to what, and at the same time we can be pretty much automatic in how those rules, who has access to what, are applied. For example, we can map the security groups from Active Directory to folders/containers in Secret Server, and then make the whole process of delegating access, delegating secrets pretty automatic. And we also do session control, session recording, and we can also analyze metadata, search through metadata, search through recording, and I will show you how this looks like. Privilege Manager is responsible for establishing and basically enforcing least privilege approach. So with its help, we can get rid of local administrator accounts, meaning that the users will only have just basic privileges, specifically not administrator privileges on the local endpoint they operate in. And by local endpoint, I mean Windows 10, it can be Mac OS, it can be a Windows Server system as well. So we can, for example, secure a jump server, jump station with Privilege Manager. And outside of taking those privilege out of the user, we can also monitor what the user has access to, what the applications they are running, and based on the whitelist, blacklist approach, and even sandboxing, to limit what the user is running on their endpoints. And if needed, we can also elevate the privileges of a particular user, so to make the whole process as transparent to the end user as possible. So ideally, the user will not even notice that something happened to his privileges, and still be able to run the applications he got used to run. And when there is something bad happening, so he falls a victim of some phishing attack, and there is second level payload that is run on the endpoint, it tries to reach out to some internet servers, will limit its activity to just a local system and do not allow to jump to any other system outside of a local authority. Privilege behavior analytics is a system that uses data from today from secret server, so the privileged users data, and it will very soon consume all the data from privilege manager. So we'll combine basically two worlds into one: the administrator's world with data from secret server, and the business users world based on the data which are today produced by Privilege Manager. The ultimate idea is to create a profile for each and every user, and then based on the profile, observe any anomalies to what is happening with the user, and then raise alarms and even block the user eventually if his risk level goes over a certain established threshold. Account Lifecycle Manager, it's a system that helps us to establish control over full life of service accounts. So secret server alone can be very useful with dealing with and securing service accounts, and by that I mean that secret server will discover service accounts and their dependencies. So if there is a application pool running with particular secret/password, then we'll discover that automatically, and if we need to change the password, so do a password change routine, then we'll also restart the application pool that is running with particular credentials. So we'll make this process fairly simple and easy to use. But what secret server does not really help with is establishing full life cycle, meaning that to have a named owner of the service account, to have approvers of the service account who will grant access to the service, and to have basically a TTL, time to live, for each and every service account in order to manage if they are still needed. Because the big problem for companies is the service accounts sprawl. Nobody knows how many service accounts we have, and truth is that nobody wants to touch them, because if I touch this service account, nobody knows what will happen, because there is no named owner. And it might be a number of things that depend on the service account. So the reality is that those service accounts are never disabled, or almost never disabled. So the number of those guys is growing and growing and growing, and becoming even larger problem every month, every year. DevOps Secret Vault is a secret vault dedicated to the DevOps environment, and by that I mean that it allows for programmatic access to it. So it can be done over API, it can be done over a CLI client, it can be done over SDK, it can be done over ready-to-use plugins for popular orchestrators in the DevOps world, things like Jenkins, Terraform, and some other guys. And to a certain level, it overlaps with Secret Server as well, because Secret Server alone does provide API access to it. What is different about those two guys is the level of request each of those gentlemen can handle. DSV being much more versatile in number of requests it can basically stand, and there are some also quite unique features in the DevOps world that DSV goes after, things like dynamic secrets or just-in-time access for Azure, AWS, GCP, name it. So it's basically its specialty. And last but not least, Connection Manager. Connection Manager is a client that allows to run RDP, SSH sessions within one window. So you can have multiple SSH sessions, RDP sessions, everything in a single window, easy to switch from one to another, easy to manage. And it's actually a free of charge software that everybody can download themselves and use. It runs on macOS, it runs on Windows, but it also has its paid flavor when we connect Connection Manager to Secret Server. And when we do that, Connection Manager will pull secrets from Secret Server and allow to connect to the secrets I have access to in a very nice and user-friendly way. I would put it this way. So the admins love it because it simplifies their life. So let's see how it actually looks in live. So here I am on the left. Let me maybe, yeah, this would be, I guess, just a little bit bigger for you, hopefully. So first thing first, I need to log into the system. Let's do it. My lucky user is Lucky Luke. Okay, so I get a pop-up for a PIN code, and it's a two-factor authentication mechanism. It can be anything that is based on radius. It can be anything based on one-time password, so OTP codes. So in my case, I'm using Google Authenticator, but you can use anything that uses the OTP under the hood. So let me log in. Yeah, again. We can also use YubiKeys, so a physical two-factor authentication to force as a mechanism to secure access to Secret Server. And last option is to use virtual keyboard. So, I mean, if I was logging into Secret Server from some distant location, let's say being on vacation and purposely not taking my laptop with myself and then forced to log into Secret Server from some public space computer, then this could help, because if there was a backdoor installed over there that was logging keys, so keyboard logger, then it does not come handy for this guy if it's a virtual keyboard with a random mapping. So it's a very, I would say, useful mechanism on top. Once I log in, I'm typically presented with some high-level data that gives me an overview of what's password status or secret status, and there is this report called heartbeat status. Heartbeat is a mechanism that we check if the password that we have in Secret Server is still valid on the target system. So it's very useful to look at it. And if I had any failed secrets, failed Herbit, this would mean that there are some secrets out of sync. So so it might be that the user has accessed the system outside of secret server and has changed the secret, or might be actually a symptom of a successful attack on some user credentials. I can customize this to my preference. I can include reports over here. So it's really useful and gives a quick overview of what is happening with my environment. With that, I would normally switch to secrets. So secrets are my password that I have in my stored in secret server, and they are organized in certain way. So first of all, I have my personal folder where I'm storing some, let's say, more personal data or more personal secrets. In that case, is a Twitter account, and I could use it to log in to Twitter. And for that, we use a functionality of web password filler. So let me quickly generate a token so I can log into it. So, and web password filler is responsible for, as the name suggests, filling the password. I won't be logging to Twitter for now, so you have to believe me for that, but I will get back to the web passwords for sure. The structure that you can see here on the left, it entirely depends on you. It's your view. It's how you want to deal with secrets, how it makes most sense. So I have seen very different approaches to that. It might be a functional approach. So I would basically make folders based on type of the system, Unix system, Windows system, critical systems. It can be based on like a team approach, meaning the people that are responsible for certain systems. And then eventually it might map back to Active Directory security groups. And that's an example I have in here. I'll get back to it in a moment. But going over different ways to do that, you might also see from time to time a geographical structure. All in all, it's really on you how you want to view this. And nice thing about that is it will be populated pretty automatically to the end user or the admin in the end, based on the mappings we do in here. So how does it really work? So let's look at Unix team folder / container and look at its permission. So I can see from here that people who have access to that folder is local admin. This is SS admin, secret server administrators, and which is a group from Active Directory, and specifically IT Unix team. So let me log into the very same secret server with just different credentials. I'm here login as karaoke. Let's log out and log in as Bruce Hunter. So Bruce Hunter is my Unix admin. So supposedly he should have access only to Unix team secrets, and that's exactly the case. So, and whenever I add new admin to IT Unix team folder or security group in Active Directory, he will automatically get access into the Unix team folder in here, right? So I haven't told that explicitly, but when I was logging in, you could easily spot that I was logging with domain credentials. So everyone who is logging with domain credentials, they will get the structure or they list based on the membership to security groups in Active Directory. I don't have to use Active Directory for that. So I could use, let's say, first of all, I could use local users. So if I find Active Directory evil, I would populate the list of the users locally. I can do a bulk operation, basically import the users, and then do groups that are local as well. So populate those groups with those users. Again, I can import the assignments into here, and then eventually I would achieve exactly the same result with those local users. So the new users or the user belonging to a particular group would get access to the appropriate folder in secret server and to the secret stored over there. So we are pretty flexible on that. How is it being done? And I'm pretty sure that we can follow whatever scheme you would like us to follow with that. Let's look at some examples what else I would do with the system, because the structure is structure, but I have actually do some I have some activities to do basically, right? So in that case, I'm dealing with a Unix account. I can see from here the username, the machine name, so the target system. I can see a password. It's masked by default. I can do show me the password from here and hide it back again. I can go over the history of the password as well. And everything that I do based on the secret level, and not only secret level, leaves tracks, right? So I have viewed the password and it is being recorded in the system, and that's something that I might report on later on. So whatever I do in here is being tracked and then eventually reported. In that case, I'm using private key to log in, and guess what? I can finally use a passphrase to the key, right? Something that we normally tend not to do, because the logging by SSH keys helps us to forget about the passwords. But within secret server, I can have a complicated password on the key itself, still be the whole process very very usable, very intuitive, and not and still very secure, so, or more secure than I got used to. So I've clicked launcher, and guess what? I'm right now with Patti, and I'm logged in, and I could do whatever I was about to do. So okay, but in that case, I had access to password. I used the key, or I mean, so is it really that secure? Could I, for example, block the password view? That's obviously possible, and there is an option for it, hide launcher password, and I can quickly enable it just to prove you that it does work. And guess what? I don't have the password in here anymore, so I cannot preview it. We'll get to the different details of the secret later on. Let me switch over to a different account, the one that I particularly like. This one is a firewall account. It's an OpenSense system. It has two ways to access it. I can do it over SSH. So I have a Patti launcher, and I can also access it over web interface. So let's do both and see again how it works. With SSH channel, it should be pretty much the same experience I have seen previously, with exception that I'm blended with restricted shell. So I have just named options. What could I do with that? And I could also escape the shell from here, name, yeah, put 8, and now I have unrestricted shell that I can mess up with. So how this would look for web access. So for web access, I'm switched to web interface, or to another tab basically, And as you could see, that with the web password field filled in all the details, and here I am with the OpenSense web interface. And on top of that, you can see that there is red dot blinking on top of the tab. It's as a visual indicator of the fact that we record that session. So whatever I do in here will again leave a track and can be audited later on. So if I had some malicious intent, I could say, okay, so let me help with some to disable certain functionality that normally would make my attack unuseful or being able to discover by the system. So I could have intrusion detection enabled in here. It's disabled actually. So just for the sake of the presentation, I will enable it. And still this gets recorded. And if there was an investigation later on, I could go back to that and capture the fact that the particular user disabled the intrusion detection, and he probably did it for intentionally and for a certain purpose. Okay, I will close the tab down. A side note to that, we only record what is within a tab that we have secrets for. So if I had multiple tabs open in here and some personal systems or personal stuff running in, so for example, I would be logged in into Facebook, Twitter, or I don't know, my healthcare provider, this does not get recorded. Only the activities with certain tabs are recorded, so we don't get too much like Big Brother way with that. Let's look at further details of that secret. So what we see from here is that the password will expire in 25 days. We see that we have a password that is valid. I mean, we confirm that with logging into the system over SSH and the web access. But it's, I mean, if I didn't, that's an indicator of it. And what I can do from here, if I haven't logged in and check it manually, I could say, okay, so I'm not sure if this one is still valid, so please check that. So I have issued a task in the background, which will log into the system and check if the password is still valid. And I can see from here that yes, it's still valid. I can also change password from here. So, and I can do it just a manual basis, and it can be randomly generated based on the policy that I have attached to a certain account. So let's do this further more. Right now we can see that there is action on password change. I could stop it if I wanted, but this should be done very quickly, hopefully. And we'll proceed on. Yes, so the password has changed. It was randomly generated according to the policy I have for the template I store the password in. So in that case, it's my custom template that I have created for this one. So the password changing routine, I could automate it. So I could say, okay, follow the principle of the password template, and it's usually set at 30 days. So every 30 days, the password would be changed. Since I have changed it just recently, it gives me an indicator that it's 30 days for password to be valid and then needed to be rotated. So that's something very useful. I could say in here also, I could set a custom schedule. So I could say, okay, rotate the password every 24 hours. And we do that from time to time. It could be a really bad practice, like some script stored out there with a password being hard-coded in. and we would have a password stored in secret server for this gentleman, and we can then reach out to the script and change the password not every 24 hours, but even more aggressively, let's say every hour. So the password is still there. Somebody can access it, but it will be valid only for an hour. So effectively, we lower the risk and we lower the overall exposure. So this would be like a service account, and specifically for service accounts, I mentioned the fact that we can have those dependencies related to service accounts, and we discover them automatically. So we won't find that nasty script out there with a hard-coded password automatically, but we'll find services, application pools, tasks scheduled within Windows system and others that are running out there with services, and then automatically import those guys as dependencies. So if I did a similar thing in here, so yeah, do change password, then after I change the password, the system would reach out to the service and restart the service, basically, to make sure that it does work without any troubles or issues. Let me take one more regarding how we launch passwords and what we can do in here, and we'll switch to reports, recording, and then analytics. Okay. Oh, this one. So this will be actually two passwords, two secrets. So in that case, I have a special feature configured on that secret called check-in, check-out. It's a feature which gives me exclusivity on that particular secret. So it's like a book in the library. I get the book and I'm the only one that is able to use it. And it works the same way in here. So right now within the secret, I can access it. I could fire up RDP launcher and get to the end system. And after the use, I have to check in the secret, and then the other user can use it. And I could complicate it a little bit or make it more useful in certain scenarios. So in that case, it's the same idea. I have now exclusive access to that secret, but in this case, it does also come with additional action. So when I do check out, so there is a script that reaches out to Active Directory and actually enables user for which we have secrets stored with that particular secret. So if I do RDP launch in here, let's do it for domain controller. In that case, okay, coming. So I'm logged into domain controller, and what happened behind the scenes was that secret server has actually enabled the user that I'm logging in with, and it can come handy for example, when we are talking about external contractors. So we don't want those guys' accounts to be permanently enabled in Active Directory, and we would use that feature basically to grant them access in an exclusive way, and also silently enable the account and disable after I do secret checking. So when I do that, there is another action happening, and the user is right now disabled in Active Directory. Enough launching. I wanted to show you also some reports. And how we do it, there is a bunch of them, very useful ones, and they go over different aspects of secret server. Let's take a look at some of my favorite ones. There is this report that I don't have access to in here. Apparently, I have limited myself. So let's go active secret sessions. So let's go over some different one. Yeah, so let's go over this one. So what secrets change passwords in the last 90 days? So there is a lot of these guys, and this report can be scheduled, can be sent over email, and can also be basically modified. And it's pretty simple to do. When I do what I have just done, I get access to actual query. So I see all select joins which are used to construct a particular report. And if I wasn't entirely happy with how the data is presented to me and wanted to modify it, I'm able to do it pretty quickly and intuitively. So I would add, okay, new report, just name it somehow, and copy paste the code, just slightly modify it, preview if the result is actually what I wanted to achieve, and then go with it and use as any other report that I have access in this section. So very intuitive and very useful. We have two other tabs for reporting. We have security hardening report that goes over certain aspects of secret server, how it's configured, and some features we might flag as potentially not 100% secure. So for example, we might want disable approval over email. If somebody's account was taken over, the email account, then they would be able to grant the access to secrets themselves over clicking a link in the email. So it might be considered then potentially dangerous. It's there, it's up to the end user to decide if they want to use it. And finally, we have user audit, which is being used to basically focus in on a particular user. So yeah, let's stay with my Lucky Luke account, and I get all the informations on what the user was recently doing with secrets, the sessions she was launching, when, how long they lasted, and the IP address which was used for. And I have also a magic button called expire now. So if I didn't find very amusing what the user was doing, meaning that I would consider the activity to be malicious, I could click expire now, and expire now does a very brutal thing. It would expire all secrets that the user has access to. So instead of going to each secret and say, okay, block that user from this and that and a couple of others, I could block him from here, and then start wondering what to do next with that user. So very useful, very brutal at the same time. Let's see how the recording functionality really looks like, and we will shortly go to the analytics piece itself. So let's go back to this one for short.
So Robert, we're okay to run this a little longer because we have lunch break, so it's okay for you to take a little more time.
Okay.
Just make sure to please extend on the ideas about behavior-based analytics or rules.
Sure.
As well. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for nodding.
Thanks.
So the sessions which are being recorded, they come with metadata, so I can filter them out. It can be filtered on the particular user group or the secret. And I can also filter on what was happening within the session. I will do that just slightly, next thing after this one. But I want to present you how this could look like for. Let me open. Yeah, not this gentleman. Sorry, my bad. That's not exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this one, right? So here comes my session that I have started early in the demo phase. So I'm logging into system. I'm logged into a system right now. I can see the user activity down to the recording. I could enlarge it to make it more visible, obviously, and I can download the recording as well. And I can see from the activity down the recording how this session really was going on. So if there was some activity in the beginning and then a flat surface, this would mean that the user has logged in, moves the mouse around, possibly fill in something, but then there was nothing. And this alone can be used as a interesting information that, for example, if it was a external contractor, I could say from the activity heat map in here that, okay, he has logged in at 8 and logged out at 16, but the actual activity took him just slightly over an hour. So maybe the guy is actually overbilling myself for his job. So this can come handy. And let's do just shortly another recording how this looks like. Oh, so in that case, I will look for what was happening within this session. So I have a possibility to do it. So for example, I could say, show me all sessions when there was PowerShell run. And for that, I will possibly have to extend the dates and see. Okay, I see some session from Ruben Lozano where there was PowerShell run. So the view is similar to what you have seen already, but in that case, there are actually 2 or 3 spaces. That one when there is a recording itself on the right, and then there is a list of tasks or processes that were run within the session. I'm sorry that it's badly it's with the mode I have, the dark mode, it does not present itself to you very nicely, but it's a list basically of processes, and it allows me to jump to a particular process. And I have found this session based on the query for PowerShell. So I could say, okay, so show me where this PowerShell was run, and I have this view filtered out, and then I could jump to just the PowerShell part of the recording. So it was 5 hours of recording. Then, yeah, obviously I don't want to spend 5 or let's say 4 hours to just find that PowerShell session. And I also get the input from the keyboard as well down on the screen. So overall, it's very very powerful. Let's switch now to the analytics that comes with Secret Server as part of Privileged Behavior Analytics capability. So again, the data that we use as of now is the data produced by Secret Server, but we'll shortly use also Privilege Manager data. So we'll combine 2 worlds of privileges, the admin world and the business users world. The view I'm getting when I log into PBA goes over certain aspects that come handy, like top 10 reports, top 10 secrets that are being used, or top 10 most active users. I can configure it and say, okay, so how how many active users I have in my company over a certain period of time, a month in that case. And I also see a heat map meaning that what are the times of the day and the day that we map it to when there is most activity. And we'll get over that, we'll get to that just slightly later on. And I can see on the right as well some useful information. So I can see, okay, there is a bunch of users which have been inactive for 30 days. So that's the report from here. So there might be some good reason for that, and I should basically analyze that. I can also see that there are some new users detected that I haven't seen before. I could go over that report. And I also see from the notification assistant page that there was unlimited admin mode used. Unlimited admin mode is a break the glass mechanism that we have in place, meaning that someone who enables it have access to everything. And the use case for that is very simple. So your IT Unix guys might have gone for a good party on Thursday and do not come back to work on Friday. And I still have a need to access some Unix system. So the admin user with the right privileges could fire up the unlimited admin mode and then get the access to those guys' secrets / passwords and to be able to actually configure something. Let's go to alerts. So alerts is a place where the behavior profile kicks in. We need around 22, 23 days to create a profile. And after the profile is created, the activities from users who do not fill that profile, who do not match that profile, will be raised as alarms with PBA, and a score for the particular user will be raised. So this one has a particularly large score, over 500, and we can see the activities that we consider suspicious from that user. We can show on the timeline when it happened. It was Thursday, April 2nd, somewhere between 9 a.m. and 9:55, or let's say 10. And the same goes with other guys. From that perspective, from that view, I could say, okay, that's entirely normal. So I could say, okay, clear. So I could say either clear and just watch the user for future if there is anything suspicious happening, or dismiss and forget about the event or a series of events that happened that raised the alarm. Based on the score that you see over here, we can act appropriately. So just a simple measure would be to force the user to use to log out and to use two-factor authentication as an additional mechanism. We could block the user based on the threshold entirely from reaching to secret server and accessing secrets as well. And we can also, I don't have it configured here. Let me check, because I'll just show you this quickly. And we can also connect webhooks or code hooks to it. So with webhooks, we could act on just making HTTP posts to some system with data that would be like a indicator for certain action with that system. And we can also fire up a code hook, meaning that we can run a script that will do the same or so do over HTTP or some other means like some API call to other system, let's say firewall, that would do something something fancy for that user. So for example, blocking them on the firewall. What else we can do, since we have yes, some time on that as well. I mean, more time. So I have this nice clock view of user activities, and I can filter this out. So this one represents the whole company. So I can see from that where are the activities for passwords happening, and obviously they are mostly happening during Monday, Friday periods, but still I have some on the weekend, right? And I can see the same in terms of how it spreads over over the whole day, and obviously 8 to 16 or 5 p.m. is a time where the secrets are mostly active or accessed. So I can also filter this out to my favorite Ruben and see how it works for these guys. Good for him. He has a healthy family life. He doesn't work at weekends, just only during weekdays. And I can do it for any other user, and I can filter this out based on the secret and see how a particular secret is being accessed. And then if I want to find out more about let's say a secret, then I could pick one and get a more granular view on that secret and see, okay, so this is a secret that has 44 active alerts. So based on the behavior analytics, the machine learning under the hood, we found 44 suspicious activities, and I could dig into it further on and see what are the users related to those activities. Let me show you maybe one more. Yeah, let's see. Not maybe this one. Maybe yeah. Secret event map. So these are the secrets from the geographical perspective. Let's do it over last month, or maybe even custom range. Okay, let's do it this way. So now I see different IP locations or geographical locations in the end that were the source IP originators for accessing secret server. If it was this specifically can be useful when we are talking about secret server cloud, but if you have your secret server exposed to the internet, this can also come handy. And I could see, okay, there is a bunch of alarms in Australia over here. So what was really that? I mean, what was really about? So there's one risk. I can pinpoint on that and see what was it really about again, and go into further analysis. So I won't be stretching time anymore. So with that, I will conclude the demo part and basically open to questions, guys.